Thank you for joining us on this other edition of the News on Afrique Media. Well, we start with Egypt, where the country's newly elected president will be sworn in on Saturday before a high court. Traditionally, the president is sworn in before parliament, but the legislature was dissolved by order of the Supreme Constitutional Court. The court's vice president, Maha Sami, was quoted as saying that Morsi would be sworn in before the body's 18 judges. Meanwhile, the president is to address the people on the country's rebirth at the rally at Cairo's Tahrir Square. That's today. To West Africa, precisely to Mali, where the interim government has praised the courage of protesting youth and affirmed again that it will do everything it can to push out what it calls terrorists and criminals. The government issued a communique on Wednesday praising Gao residents for their exemplary resilience in the face of humiliation, criminality and violence. Residents of Gao took to the streets on Tuesday after the death of a local official allegedly killed by armed groups now controlling the region. In Nigeria, President Goodluck Jonathan has sparked intense debate by saying that Nigerian families should have only the children they can afford. In remarks to the newly created National Population Commission on Wednesday, the president said it may be time for birth control legislation. Nigeria is Africa's most populous nation with about 162 million people. The UN says the population could reach 400 million by 2050. That's a growth rate of 2.5% annually. In Somalia, at least 46 people have been killed and several others injured during heavy U.S. airstrikes in southern Somalia. The casualties come after heavy airstrikes on Al-Shabaab training bases located in the outskirts of El-Shabiyaha between Mogadishu and its neighboring city of Afgoye on Thursday. Officials said that the attacks were carried out by U.S. assassination drones and U.S. AC-130 warplanes. The U.S. military uses remote-control drones in Somalia for reconnaissance operations and targeted killings. The UN Human Rights Chief has urged the Sudanese government to avoid heavy-handed suppression as demonstrators gear up for mass protests against austerity measures today. Navi Pillay said in a statement on Thursday that tear gas, rubber bullets, live ammunition, and other heavy-handed suppression will not resolve the frustrations and grievances of the people. Rights groups say scores of people have been arrested since protests against inflation began on June 16th in the University of Khartoum. The DRC on Thursday asked Rwanda to stop funding conflicts in the east after a UN report found that Kigali officers had assisted a mutiny there. Government spokesman Lambert Mende said in a press conference, and I quote, "We demand that the Rwandan authorities prevent the officers from continuing to fuel the war in Congo. We ask them to unconditionally dismantle networks, stop recruitment and supplies feeding the nefarious forces in the Congo." Kigali has fervently denied accusations it had been helping mutiny in the eastern DRC. The U.S. Supreme Court has upheld President Barack Obama's controversial health care reform. By a majority vote of 5-4, the justices approved virtually every aspect of the plan, including the consensual provision that Americans must take out health insurance or face a penalty. Demonstrators for and against the reform gathered outside the Washington, D.C. courthouse to await the ruling. The court ruling has been seen as a major boost to Obama's re-election bid in November. Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney had called on Americans to vote Obama out of office so the bill could be repealed. Syria's president has said he will not accept any solution to his country's crisis imposed from outside as major powers meet in Geneva. Bashar al-Assad told Iranian television it was an internal issue which has nothing to do with foreign countries. Assad added that no amount of foreign pressure would make his government change its policy on internal security. Russia, meanwhile, insisted it would not endorse a plan for a transition that would require Assad to step down. 3 astronauts have returned to Earth after achieving China's first manual docking in orbit, a milestone in the country's efforts to build a space station by the end of the decade. The return of the trio, including the country's first female astronauts to a landing zone in a remote and sandy area of northern China, was broadcast to a national audience on state television on Friday. The return capsule of the Shenzhou 9 spacecraft, which lifted off on June 16, hits the ground at about 2:00 GMT after an approach slowed by a large parachute. All 3 astronauts were said to be in good physical condition. A last stop is in Mongolia, caused by Mongolia's ruling party for a recount of votes at some polling stations on Friday, delayed results in the legislative votes that centered on how to spread the wealth from the fast-growing country's mining boom. The Mongolia People's Party said it asked for the recount because discrepancies turned up in vote totals tabulated by machines and then counted by hand at some polling stations. The request sent political leaders huddling with the General Election Commission, which had been expected to announce the result from Thursday's voting on Friday morning. That's news from the newsroom. We thank you immensely for your time. Please do stay with Afrique Media. Don't forget to log on to our website, www.afriquemedia.tv. Bye for now. See you tomorrow.